All right, so let's talk about this. This is LG OLED C10 48-inch. There's 55-inch, there's 65, there's 77-inch. There's plenty of different sizes of the OLED. All right, so lately I've been asked this question about HGIG. Now, granted, I understand there's certain games like Call of Duty that support HGIG, maybe Gran Turismo Sport, and one more game in between. There's maybe 2 or 3 games that support it. But still, I don't see that much of a difference between the game that supports it and the game that doesn't support it. I have used HGIG on Ghost of Tsushima, and it still brightens up the picture, the highlights on the HDR, even though it doesn't support it. So same thing here. I can turn off HGIG and look. You don't see any difference. You don't see any difference. You don't see any difference. Do you see it? No, I don't see it. I don't see it. So, everybody's, talking about, look, I get it. You read on the internet just like I read on the internet. You have information just like I have the information. But listen, I'm in touch with LG all the time. I talk to them. I ask them questions. If this option was not available, you would not be able to select HGIG on the video games. Okay? You would not be able, it would not be highlighted. You would not be able to click on it. Just because the game doesn't support HGIG doesn't mean that you can't use it. You can still use it. It's still going to process it. Okay? But of course, a game that supports it, it's going to highlight those highlights a little bit better for the peak brightness. What does this basically does? This is dynamic tone mapping filter. What this does basically brightens up the contrast. So this sparkling light here looks a bit brighter. Okay? That's what it does. And the only way you can see the difference is I would have to bring my camera super close, and I'll try to do that right now. All right, so I brought my camera a little bit closer. I'm going to turn it off. I don't know, can you guys see the difference? You can't. It's difficult. I mean, even now I have a difficult time seeing that difference. But what drives me crazy is everybody's on internet, everybody's on my comment section saying, hey, my man, this game doesn't support HGIG, so why are you using it? I'm using it because you can still use it. That's why I'm using it. Why wouldn't I use it if it's going to help brighten up the HDR a little bit? Whatever I can use that's going to help me brighten up the HDR, why wouldn't I use it? It makes no sense. And even this game supports it, but I don't see that much of a difference with the game that supports it and with the game that doesn't support it. It's still the same result. It's still the same filter from High Dynamic Range Gaming Interest Group, HGIG. And even here, next to this character right here, I still don't see the difference. I don't see it. I don't see any difference whatsoever. Guys, listen. The only difference you're going to see if you totally turn off dynamic tone mapping. Why do you think the HGIG it's under dynamic tone mapping? Why do you ask yourself this question? Okay, don't just listen to what I have to say. Ask yourself this question. I want you to ask yourself this question. Don't listen to me. I don't know nothing. Okay? I'm the guy who got nearly 40,000 subscribers. I'm the guy who LG wants to partner with and did partner with. I don't know nothing about anything. Okay? Just don't listen to me. Ask yourself a question. A simple, logical question. Okay, are you ready? Okay, let me repeat one more time so maybe you will understand me. Ask yourself a logical question. Why in the hell would HGIG would be under dynamic tone mapping? Because it's a filter that processes and enhances the contrast and highlights on HDR, along with that OLED light and peak brightness. What does it do? It enhances a certain highlights to be brighter. For example, like this burning light over here, it's much brighter with a contrast. And that's what HDR wants. That's what HDR breeds on. So that's why it's under dynamic tone mapping. But you're not gonna see, I don't see a difference between this and then what I'm gonna see on Ghost of Tsushima. I'm gonna go to Ghost of Tsushima right now, and it's exactly the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. Because everybody's saying, oh, but you need to, this game doesn't support it. You got to play Call of Duty. Only Call of Duty supports this. Again, ask yourself a logical question. LG told me they get it. They understand that the high dynamic range gaming interest group has certain games that support this mod, this feature, but you can still use it. I mean this mode, not the mod. I mean mode. I apologize. They understand that there's maybe a handful, 3 or 4 games that support this feature, this mode. HGIG, which just started this year, high dynamic range gaming interest group. But at the end of the day, if you were denied to use it, then you wouldn't be able to use it. You would only be able to use dynamic tone mapping, and that's it. This would be only available where it's available. The reason the LG is allowing you to use this feature, this mode, it's because they want you to use it. Why? Because it helps. It helps. Why it helps? Because it helps with dynamic tone mapping. People say, but I don't see the difference. Well, you don't see the difference because you're not paying attention. You're not looking carefully at the screen. So let me go to Ghost of Tsushima. Let's see how the Ghost of Tsushima looks. So here I am. Ghost of Tsushima, HGIG. It's turned on. If LG or if High Dynamic Range Gaming Interest Group didn't want me to turn it on, they wouldn't let me turn it on. I get it. The game, it's not supported. But I still don't see any difference on the game that's supported, like Call of Duty. I turned it on. I don't see that much of a difference. It still does the same thing. It brightens up the HDR. And that's all it does. Here I am here. The same exact thing. Do you want me to turn it off? Okay, I'll turn it off. There it is. I turned it off. It's a bit dimmed. Just a little bit, slightly a little bit dimmed. Of course. But let me turn it on. There it is. It does exactly the same thing as dynamic. It's dynamic tone mapping. That's what it does. It brightens up those highlights where the contrast is, where the white level and the black level ratio meets each other, because that's what HDR is all about. It's about the ratio between your white levels and your black levels. The contrast between your white digital levels and your black digital levels. That's all it is. That's why they call it dynamic range. The range between dynamic range, listen to the words, dynamic range between your black digital levels and your white digital levels. Now, if LG didn't want me to have this feature available, they would not let me use it. You would not be able to use this. It would be not highlighted for you to use it. You can, all I'm saying is this. Why not use it? I'm not subscribing and campaigning and telling everybody, go ahead, use HGIG, is the best thing since sliced bread. I don't work for HGIG. I don't care about HGIG, okay? They're not writing my goddamn check. I'm simply saying is, if the option is available, who cares if the game supports it or it doesn't support it, use it. Why not use it? If it's gonna help the picture quality, if it's gonna help the HDR, why not use it? That's what I don't understand. Here, let me turn it off. It's off. And I'm going to turn on dynamic tone mapping. And you're going to see dynamic tone mapping does exactly the same thing. So I really don't understand what's the difference between HGIG and dynamic tone mapping. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. The only difference is some company put in a... They thought about a different name. Oh, let's call ourselves HGIG. Maybe people will think there's some kind of magic hocus pocus behind it. It's exactly the same thing. It highlights a HDR brighter images. That's all it does. But let me turn it on. Let me turn on dynamic tone mapping. And there it is. Dynamic tone mapping turned on. It's exactly the same thing. Again, guys, I'm not trying to tell people what to do. I'm not trying to go on some kind of a campaign here, because I don't work for HGIG. I quite honestly, I don't care about HGIG. Okay, I don't work for them. All I'm trying to say, if it's available, why not use it? And I quite honestly don't see the difference between the game that supports HGIG and the game that doesn't support HGIG. It does exactly the same thing that dynamic tone mapping does. That's simple. Okay? You turn off dynamic tone mapping, boom, it dims down. You turn it on, it dims it. You turn it off, it dims it. It brightens it, dims it, brightens it, dims it, brightens it, dims it, brightens it. That's all it does. That's all there is to it. There's nothing special about HGIG. You know, so it drives me crazy when I go read those comments down below. People telling me, hey, bro, it doesn't support. This game doesn't support HGIG. Who cares if it supports or doesn't support it? You can still turn it on. You can still benefit from it. You can still use it. And I just tried Call of Duty and I couldn't tell a difference. It's exactly the same thing as dynamic tone mapping. Do you know why? Because that's what it is. It's dynamic tone mapping. That's all it does. It brightens up the highlights on HDR. That's it. That's all it does. That's all it does. It brightens up the highlights on HDR. And that's it. Alright, so enough of HGIG. Listen, man. Everybody's entitled to their opinion, but man, do me a favor. I don't need you to pander to me about, oh, it doesn't support. I don't care if it doesn't support HGIG. It's available, so use it. Use it if it's available. Here, I'll turn off dynamic tone mapping, and then I'll turn on the HGIG. There it is. HGIG. Same thing. Same exact damn thing. It brightens up the highlights, the HDR highlights. That's it. That's all it does. Alright guys, enough of HGIG. Again, like I said, I don't work for HGIG. I don't care. But I'm just sick and tired of listening to people telling me, hey, you know, this doesn't support it. I just went to Call of Duty. I don't see a difference. I don't know what you guys are talking about. You want me to go back to Call of Duty? But let me go back to Call of Duty again. Here we go. HGIG. Same thing. As a matter of fact, dynamic tone mapping, it's much brighter. Actually, as a matter of fact. Here, I'll show you in a minute. It's actually much brighter. Here, I'll show you right here. It's actually much brighter. Check this out. Here, let me show you. It happens to be much brighter. And here, I'll show you. Here, look. Look at that. Actually, dynamic tone mapping, it's brighter now when it's turned on than HGIG. Look at that. So, HGIG, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. And it seems to work better on Ghost of Tsushima. But guys, listen. HGIG is not a big deal. I'm simply saying is, if you want to use it, use it. To me, it seems to look good on Ghost of Tsushima. I tried it on Ghost of Tsushima. It seems to work better on Ghost of Tsushima. Now, granted, I haven't tried HGIG on every single game, but I did try it on Ghost of Tsushima, and on Ghost of Tsushima, seems to work quite well. Now, you do have to adjust your HDR peak brightness. You do have to adjust your picture settings, obviously. You can't just turn on the HGIG and think the magic is going to happen all by itself. All right? There's a lot of misinformation out there. All I'm saying is that, to me, when I turn the HGIG, as you saw earlier, to me, personally, it looks better on Ghost of Tsushima. And Ghost of Tsushima supposedly doesn't even support HGIG. And here we go, a game that supports HGIG, it's not that brighter, while dynamic tone mapping, it's brighter. So someone explain this to me. And here, you'll see, like right here, for example, here, dynamic tone mapping, HGIG. Dynamic tone mapping, HGIG. And maybe we'll go over here, hold on, like right here. Let's go to the same, right here. HGIG, dynamic tone mapping, HGIG. Dynamic tone mapping makes it brighter, HGIG dims it down. Now, the reason the HGIG does this, because it's trying to create that highlight, trying to create that contrast, dynamic range between your black levels and white digital levels, your black digital levels and your white digital levels. Guys, remember the whole idea behind high dynamic range, and I tried to explain this like a broken record yesterday. It's dynamic range between your black digital levels and your white digital levels. And that's what they're trying to do, to find that balance between the two. So that way you're not crushing your black digital levels and you're not overblowing your white digital level. Anyway, man, listen, for some of you, this is going to be difficult to understand. All I'm saying is this. I don't care if you use HGIG or if you don't use it. I could care less. All I'm saying is, if it's available, why not use it? I'm not campaigning. HGIG is not paying me. Gaming interest group, high dynamic range, gaming interest group, it's not paying me to campaign for you to use their HGIG. I'm just simply saying, if it's available, use it. If you don't want to use it, that's fine. I could care less, dude. You don't want to use it, don't use it. All right? And here I am on the game that supposedly takes the advantage of HGIG, and I don't see the advantage of it. When in fact, dynamic tone mapping, it's dimmer. I mean, dynamic tone mapping, it's brighter when it's turned on than HGIG. But anyway, maybe it's hard for you guys to see that through a television here. Look, all I'm saying is this. HGIG is not a big deal. It just, to me, on Ghost of Tsushima, it seems to work really well. And I use it on the Ghost of Tsushima. And clearly, you can see it on my video that I did. Okay, how beautiful it looks. I guess it depends on the level. It depends on where you are in the game. Okay, etc., etc. All I'm saying is this. I don't think it really matters. The way I want to end this video is I want to end the video saying this. I don't think it really matters where you are in the game, which game you're playing, whether or not the game supports it or doesn't support it. I don't think it really matters if the game supports it or don't support it. Use it. If it's there, if it's available, use it. So let me end the video by saying this. In closing, I don't care if the game supports HGIG or if it doesn't support HGIG. Use it. It's there. It's available. Why not? Okay, why not use it if it's available, and why not use it if it really helps the picture quality? Ghost of Tsushima happened to be that one game to me that I saw the difference. Okay? And let me just leave it at that. All right?